A 1-2 punch of a system here this weekend and in the early next week. Hello, I am Vice President Mark Spencer from NeoWeather. We have two systems we're going to briefly talk about. One affects mainly the western Great Lakes back into the northern plains a little bit, and the big one is Monday and the Tuesday that everybody's kind of starting to talk about at this point in time. But there's not a lot of great model consistency on it, and that's leading to a low confidence system right now. So let's dive into the models here, starting with the European. Here's our system late Saturday afternoon into Sunday, moving across the western Great Lakes. Some of that will probably overrun and not reach the ground. Here's our big system. The European, as that low gets to about Indianapolis, Indiana, everything starts fizzling out, and then we'll see another low kind of pop up over here around the Delmarva, and that'll bring a lot of that precipitation out to sea. So here it is again, heavy snow across southern lower Michigan, back into northern Illinois, including Chicago and parts of Iowa as well. Also loop one more time here. Some of that moisture Sunday night may overrun and not actually reach the ground. Plenty of rain for the Ohio Valley. We'll see some mixed precip, maybe even a little ice across northern Ohio there, but I don't think it's going to be of anything of significant consequence. Generally going to kind of flip back and forth fairly quick between one precipitation type to another, and I don't really think we'll see too much in the way of accumulation above about a glaze of ice where it does persist, according to this solution. Now, let's dive into the Canadian model. We're going to see a southern track here, generally along the Ohio Valley. Here's our system Sunday night. I think a lot of that's overdone early. And there it is right here. And when it gets to about Elkins, West Virginia, it just kind of dies off and then redevelops out over sea there, and it just pulls everything out to the Atlantic Ocean. So here it is again, and here we go. Here's our heavy snow right here. This would be more of a northern Indiana back into northern Illinois area where we see that heavier snow, and then a very sharp cutoff north of that. That also brings a little bit more ice into central Ohio, although I don't think it'd be as persistent what this model shows. Not a huge fan of this particular solution right now, but we'll have to watch it at the moment. The GFS, I'm really not a big fan of the solution at all. You're going to see the low track pretty much north of the Ohio River, and we'll go from about Indianapolis to Cleveland before it finally fizzles out, and that's a northerly solution. And we'd bring our heavier snow more across the I-96 corridor in Michigan there, and that really is not the solution I think that will play out. It's a lot of rain for the Ohio Valley, a little mixed precip basically for northern Ohio back in the parts of Indiana. Here's our system Saturday into Sunday. Pretty consistent across the western Great Lakes. Much of the snow will be out here. You'll see a snowfall forecast for that in a moment, but just not a fan of how it's tracking this particular low pressure system so far north. We haven't really seen that too much this winter, and I don't think that's going to be the case right now. The NAM's just coming in the range. Here's our system here. I think that's pretty well modeled. Some of this Sunday night may be overrunning where that precipitation is falling aloft, but it's not reaching the ground, it's drying up. So it may look like it's doing something on radar, but really in actuality, it's not reaching the ground. And I think some of that's overdone. Here's our system here. It's gonna be an Ohio Valley tracker, much like the Canadian. And again, when we get to about Elkins, West Virginia, it's just gonna kind of bring everything out to sea about as fast as it can. And we'll see it come together one more time here. Our heavier snow zone will be much further south. Generally eastern Ohio, northwestern PA, west along the I-80, I-90 corridors back towards Chicago is where we would see our heavier snow. So further south on that one if this were to come together. But the intensity of the low, the strength of the low does vary on each of the models. Not by a ton. The biggest change is the track of this particular system, and there's just not a lot of great consistency right now. We're really not even that far, only a few days away from this system impacting us. So we're gonna have to kind of keep an eye on things, and the forecast will definitely change over the next 24 to 36 hours. So now how much snow are we going to get for the western Great Lakes? This is in the Sunday evening, by the way. 4, 5, 6 inches of snow going to be pretty common. Minneapolis back into central Wisconsin. Could see some spots that get 7 inches of snow, but I think that'll be hit and miss. Otherwise, much of the western Great Lakes, 2 to 4 inches of snow. That even gets into northern lower Michigan. And then just south of that, 1 to 2 for Bay City, Saginaw, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then down towards the very far northern reaches of Illinois and on back into Iowa. South of that, less than an inch, and really it'll probably be more like a coating to a half an inch. My only concern is that as that precipitation moves east over Michigan, we could see some overrunning that we just talked about. And that's because we have a lot of dry air in place here currently. And if that's the case, amounts would be on the lower end of these because it's a quick moving system and it's weakening by the time it gets here. And if it's hitting that dry air, a lot of it may not reach the ground at all. Now, for our big system Monday into Tuesday, this is very subject to change based on storm intensity and storm track. But right now, what's been consistent is our heavier snow zone roughly from about Des Moines, Iowa, across towards Davenport, Iowa, and then northern Illinois towards Chicago, the far northern reaches of Indiana, and into southwestern lower Michigan to about the Kalamazoo area. We could see 8 to 10, maybe upwards of 12 inches of snow in spots. That can change based on, again, the track. If it were to go a little bit further north, this may shift a little bit further north. If it could also come further south, more towards that I-80, I-90 corridor, and that would shift further south. Note the cutoff on both edges of that heavier snow zone. Very, very sharp. Not so much on the southern edge, but still sharp enough. The northern edge will be very sharp. Take Grand Rapids, for instance. Look, we got it in a 1 to 3, but any shift north, all of a sudden you're doubling amounts. Any shift south, you may not get much snow at all. So that's going to be very tricky to forecast right there, depending on the storm track. As you get into kind of north central Illinois, it's anywhere from about 3, maybe 6 inches of snow, a little bit more as you get towards I-80 is possible. Into Ohio, really the best chance, far northwestern Ohio, generally Toledo points west. Is where we'll see our more accumulating snow, 3+ inches really. 1 to locally 3 across northern Ohio. I think the best chance for 3 is probably east of Cleveland in the higher terrain. And then we don't see the heavier snow really pick up until you get back into western New York and north central Pennsylvania. That's kind of where the energy gets dumped off there. So everything kind of snows out there in the mountains. But again, much of the Ohio Valley really is just going to be rain. Our area of ice, I think right now, best chance for ice along and north of I-70 from line roughly from Champaign, Illinois to Indianapolis to Columbus, Ohio generally. Somewhere there, I think, is where we'll see the best chance for some freezing rain. That could leave a glaze of ice, maybe even 1/10 of an inch in spots too. Again, much to change here in the next couple of days, but this is our thinking as of right now. Do stay tuned and visit our website, neoweather.us, to learn more.